Hello and welcome to my channel. Um, I've got to have some disclaimers on this video at first, all right, beforehand. I'm not advocating anything for anyone. This is just my thoughts. Normally you could understand that from people, but nowadays you have to make yourself perfectly clear what your intentions are or whatever. My only intentions are to tell you my thought process when I go through things. When I come into these rants, it's usually because there's something serious that I need to get across without being clickbaity or attention grabbing or any of the other motives that you may think that I have behind what I want to say. I want to get across something that I feel very passionate about, but because of various forms of censorship, I am not allowed to express myself the way I would like to express myself, because my words. All right, I'm trying to form this as I go along. Let's start with a rhyme. Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. I hope you know by now that even though that's designed to, I think, basically keep people from reacting to violence because of words, it's not a true statement. Words can hurt you. All of our wars, any wars that you can think of, words were involved, either from the person trying to motivate the opposition or to motivate the resistance. Words can hurt you. So you have to be careful with your words. And if you're speaking in nowadays in a global world, it might be translated differently in different languages. So you have to look at the intent behind someone when they're speaking. And if somebody's speaking loud and pulling on emotions rather than your thought process, then that can tell you what their motivation is behind the speech, what they are trying to do. If they're trying to draw to your heartstrings and to your belly, and they want you to ignore your mind and cut that out, my suggestion would be, don't trust that one. Now again, here we go again with the mind, because labels and categories. I mean, this is another one that's been bouncing in my head. And in knives, let's get this into something like this. Traditional knives are a very good example of labels and stuff like that, because what you call this outer connecting thing out here can be considered some people would call it a handle, some people would call it a cover, some people call it a shell. You see what I'm talking about labels? And people start getting caught up. Well, the reason for labels is because it's descriptive. It usually describes a thing. It's not the entirety of the thing. This is part of a knife, and it's a description of the knife, but it has nothing to do. You're ignoring the bigger picture. You're getting focused down into a little minute. You got diverted. You got diverted from your whole intention. There have been whole huge arguments in threads, and people have gotten pissed off and angry at each other just because someone else didn't agree with what you had to say, and they believed that they were right in that. And see, and when it gets down to something like that, that's like scientific, and you can describe something, usually there's consensus, and eventually, someone will say, no, as strong as you feel about this other thing, that's actually, it's not removable, easily removable or something, so we're going to call it this other term, and, this other person wins in that description. There's no reason to get upset and go crazy about that, just because the other person didn't agree. But it was just a misunderstanding. Somebody didn't understand the terms, the rules. See, again, here it comes back to rules and laws and stuff. Those are words. I mean, I don't want to get, I don't know if it matters anymore. I can't find my pocket constitution. Oh, here it is. These are just words, really. It's just words written down on a piece of paper. And it's the intent, it's the meaning behind it. All right? There's a lot of context. If you take anything I said in any rant, and you just clipped one little portion of it and said, "Oh, this is what he meant," this is what he was talking about and everything. You have to take the entire context behind it. All right? And what I'm trying to get at is that I don't want to say both sides on any particular situation, but when you try to silence someone's voice, civil rights, like Martin Luther King, assassinated. John F. Kennedy talking about going to moon and to Mars. I was alive when Kennedy was assassinated. I actually wrote a letter to him as a kid, and it made the newspaper. My mom had a clipping of it and stuff. I talked about this before. But his life was ended, through violence. And that's not, we know, that's not the answer. Violence is like, you've given up on using your mind. It's come down to where talking, and I'm not, like I said, I don't advocate, but the United States wasn't formed through just saying, "Hey, England, we say that we're independent." No, they had to fight for these rights, and it basically came down to, like they say in the history book, whoever wins the war writes the history. So for us, we were patriots, but to England, we were, an uppity colony that wasn't obeying the rules and everything, and had to be shown, how to do it. Well, we were land-based, and they had to ship their stuff over there, but it wasn't easy. And from then on, when you join the military, one of the things that it says in there is that you are not going to go, a lot of this stuff has just been violated left and right, and people are just turning a blind eye to it because they like the guy in power or whatever. No, if you let all these checks and balances that are in here go away, you let the whole concept of this go. You might as well, you can hug the flag all you want, but if you're burning the Constitution, you can burn the flag all you want. To me, I'm a veteran. I don't think it should be punishable. That's a form of expression. If your whole thing is, that's all from capture the flag kind of crap, oh, don't let the flag fall to the enemy's hands or whatever. Let's go run and grab it. No, it's the concept in your mind. Don't get it captured down into, I'd be much more upset if people were burning the Constitution. That should be illegal. Defying all of this in here, not obeying that should be illegal. It is, if you obey this. But if you burn this and you don't believe in this, then it's just words. It's just pieces of paper. If people don't believe that and they don't stand up for the Constitution of the United States, then you're right, yeah. Again, I am not advocating violence. I am trying to point out that words have meaning, words have purpose, and if we don't believe in these words, if we don't obey these words, it's the same thing where if you're a Christian, if you believe in the Bible, if you don't obey the Bible all the way through it, and I understand that's very difficult to do, but still, I mean, if something that you strongly believe in, and I'm sure there are words in there, and people to interpret those words and tell you what it really meant, but hopefully you have the original source material can be traced back, then yeah, if those words don't have any meaning, then I went through revolutions when I was growing up. I mean, think about it, 60s, 70s, there were people for Vietnam and going to the war, and the hippies and a lot of other people were turn out and tune in. So there was the war is always within yourself. The biggest war that has ever been fought is still going on. It's within your mind. Are you going to let your mind be controlled by emotion or logic? And they get mixed up. I don't have the answer. My answer is, if you want to play this game where we all obey the laws and we follow the laws, then do it. Follow the laws. If you think something is so great and so perfect and everything, pass the law, sign it into law, and then, hey, if you follow this, that's fine. And the deck is stacked for the current president in power. Controls all branches of the government, and I would argue to say the media too. But we allow masked people to run around and just take anybody off the street based upon what? Color? Where they're hanging out? I don't agree with that. I think that's wrong. And it's also illegal. It is not legal, no matter how much you like it or not, to grab. You should be, by default, considered a U.S. citizen unless you've got, like good proof. And if you do, then fine. Take them. Go. If you're here illegally, then, especially if they're criminals, but a lot of times it's not. And it's stupid. And everything in America is being destroyed. I mean, people, made a big thing. The things have been stolen from you, all right? The United States flag was stolen from you. The word patriot was stolen from you. The word liberal was stolen. The word radical was stolen. All of those things were categorized into something so that you don't have to think a lot about it. You already know. Isn't that the same way with racism? You don't have to think about a lot of stuff. All you have to do is look with your eyes. This guy is a different color than this guy. Which do we hate the most? Well, society has picked this color because, for obvious reasons in the United States, we don't have a very clean history in here. The Civil War was really more about voting and property rights than everything. But still, when you have a civil war, when you have us fighting, together, the puppet master who says, We must all play by the rules. While they are pissing on the rules and burning up the rules, how cut up are they getting in this fight, huh? And how are they doing that? Words through your ears, or whatever means your ears, your eyes, and you believe those words. And those words are telling you green is bad and black is bad, and you must not listen to them because they are animals and they are not human beings and they deserve no mercy. Fight, right? And all that you would normally rely on and depend on, food, shelter, and all that, take that away. It's the shock rats in a cage thing going on. Constantly bombard people with stress. We've seen it before. We know how this game is. I hope most of you are of. Here's another word that was stolen. What's the opposite of asleep? Woke. Woke already, like, people already associated with like liberal, left, and everything. Would you rather have your eyes closed or open? What's the opposite of woke? What is it? Non-woke? In other words, like, oh yeah, okay, so these got a bad name now. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Well, when were those bad characteristics? It used to be called affirmative action. That, I remember I grew up through the civil rights. My father was a racist. I heard a lot of this, all right? And I used my brain to say, hey, I don't know which side is right or wrong. I just know that people on the inside are the same no matter what color they are, all right? And if you're being pitted against this one or that one because their culture is different from you, or their religion is different from you, or they like a king and you don't, or whatever, it's just like this John Wick that I watch, I've never watched it before, but I got hooked. I did a marathon. I watched 1, 2, and 3. I wanted to watch 4, but they were going to make me pay for it, so I said, no, that's all right, I can wait. I need some sleep anyway. After watching, I don't know. I got up in between, but I didn't take breaks. It was intense. It's unrealistic. Just for one, the physical things on your body. If you ever, I've jumped out of a moving vehicle before at 45 miles an hour. Yeah. Luck has a lot to do with it. I've had guns fired and fired guns without ear protection on. Magnum rounds. Yeah. You don't recover from a lot of this stuff. It's just like if you go through things in life, music that I listened to before I had these experiences hit me differently now because I know what they were talking about. Back then I was a kid, 18, 16, whatever. And I hadn't gone through a lot of life experiences, but man, when you get older and you listen to some of that stuff, it's like, whoa. And I still have a lot of issues to work through. I don't have the answers, but I do know what doesn't work. I do know what doesn't work. Civil wars only serve the people that were pulling the strings behind them. Sometimes the motivation is good. Sometimes society turns out right. Sometimes you're on what's considered the right side. If you don't, sorry, I'm bumping that. If you don't believe in that and you don't feel that way, then you need to work on yourself. You need to work on the inner motivations behind what is no matter what label you put behind it, how would society look like if your side won or your side won, how would it look? Would people in general be better? Or would they still be doing this? And would they still have less and less? Take this away from them. Take that away. They don't need that. This is too big. You can have a flashlight, but, you know, we don't like this color that's coming out of that one, so now you can't have that either. You know, give up. Give up everything that you've had before. Why? Why? What's the reason behind all of this? Who is benefiting? Have you ever heard of follow the money? Have you ever looked at the distribution of wealth in America? Now, you may say this is communistic, but you know what? And socialistic and whatever, again, that's a label to get you inflamed. If you look at what's going on, I don't care what label you put on it, there is a huge disparity between, and you can see how the rich live. It used to be called conspicuous consumption. We are in and you are out. We control the government, the media, everything. And if you're not along with us, prepare to get stepped on if you get in the way. And there's nothing you can do about it. Rights? You have no rights. We can change that. We can get rid of that easily. No problem. As long as everybody's going along with it and agreeing. It's crazy. Why would people choose this? People didn't choose this, but they're allowing it to happen. Why? Because one side still thinks we're playing by a rule book. We're not. It's not. The rule book has been thrown out. All right? Again, I'm not advocating violence. I am not saying that. If this thing gets banned or I get censored or I get a strike, you'll know why. It's because they disagree with my words, with what I'm saying. And they're going to try to say that my intention is not what I just said. My intention is exactly the opposite. Don't find some weird, I don't know, gamer thing in here. You know, oh, if he's got a cricket, it means he's into this, and dinosaurs mean it. No! Sometimes, you know, I'm not into all that stuff. All right? So, yeah, you know, labels. They considered me madman in the military. Wow. I grew up around guns. I have not been radicalized. You see, a lot of these people, that the only difference that happened to them, they had a good father, they had good parents, they were raised around guns. What's wrong with being raised around guns? All right? I'd rather have a kid that knows how to use a gun than one that doesn't, simply because he's going to encounter them sooner or later in his life. And even if he doesn't like guns, it'd be good to know how to handle them safely, or to make sure that they're being handled safely. You know? I make a joke about safety third and everything, but I was a range officer. I worked on a rifle and pistol range with the public. I was in the military also, and I've been in life, so that, yeah, things can go really bad really quickly with a firearm. But I'm going to have to make this in a couple of parts.